Thank you, Jeff. It occurred to me earlier that the rabbis and clergy who created this prayer book purposely put a shofar service right before the sermon. Just making sure you're awake. My parents met in a laundry room. Yes, a laundry room. It all started on a hot and humid afternoon in an off-campus apartment complex in Gainesville, Florida. My mom, a new student at the University of Florida, headed to do laundry in her building for the first time. Not realizing she needed exact change, she was stuck as she moved her wet clothes to the dryer. My dad suddenly appeared in the laundry room, and with a twinkle in his eye, pulled out a paperclip and twisted and turned it just so before he shoved it into the coin slot in the dryer. Voila! The machine miraculously started. That's how it happened. How a Jewish guy from Queens met an Italian Catholic girl from Marlboro, New York, in the laundry room. That chance meeting and my dad's, let's call it ingenuity, eventually led to love, kids, and now 41 years of marriage. Like many of their contemporaries in the early 80s, marrying outside of one's faith tradition was becoming more common, but was still a frowned-upon phenomenon in many circles. In 1981, the rabbi of the local Reform congregation where my parents belonged in Merritt Island, Florida, did not perform interfaith marriages. So my parents were married by the rabbi emeritus. This story is one that I know is familiar and personal to many of you. At the time of the founding of Sukkot Shalom in 1995, Rabbi Gordon was one of very few rabbis in the Chicagoland area who would perform interfaith marriages. Sukkot Shalom was created out of a necessity, a rabbi and a synagogue that would welcome all who sought a Jewish home, not only after a couple was married and wanted to raise Jewish children, but at a pivotal moment in a couple's life. Unfortunately, more than 25 years later, many rabbis and synagogues still miss the mark when it comes to welcoming interfaith families. Recently, a relative of one of our B'nai Mitzvah students asked me if it was okay for them to recite the Torah blessings because they weren't allowed to do so at their own child's B'nai Mitzvah. When I told them that they were welcome to recite the Torah blessing, I could see the relief and happiness on their face. It was obvious that being silenced at their child's B'nai Mitzvah had hurt this parent, one who had played an integral role in raising a Jewish child. I know there are many families who have unfortunately experienced this kind of hurt and exclusion. Research and statistics over the years have been used as weapons to support the anti-intermarriage movement. The threat to Jewish continuity is often the loudest argument used to disavow interfaith marriage. Ultimately, over 30 years after the 1990 Jewish population study that created an uproar over Jews marrying someone of a different faith, research today shows that 72% of non-Orthodox Jews marry a non-Jewish person, and that almost half of Jewish millennials have only one Jewish parent. While it's true that marrying a partner of a different faith is a common occurrence amongst non-Orthodox Jews, there is no indication that these marriages result in a decline in Jewish life. In fact, a study published in 2013 found that 85% of interfaith couples who had a rabbi perform their wedding were raising Jewish children. As we all know, Sukkot Shalom is an example of how creating a community that welcomes interfaith families is the antidote to the challenges that those who disavow interfaith marriage claim. Many of you in this room created beautiful interfaith families, and I myself am a living, breathing example and product of such. Sukkot Shalom is a perfect example of how many clergy, researchers, and lay people got it wrong. The Jewish people will not die out because of interfaith marriage. In fact, the synagogues and communities who chose to embrace interfaith couples and families and instill in them a sense of belonging in the Jewish world understood the ultimate answer to creating a vibrant and thriving Jewish people: to embrace change with openness and creativity. The holiday of Rosh Hashanah invites us to welcome this kind of creativity. On a macro and micro level, we celebrate the creation of the world and look inward to perform the act of teshuvah. Rabbi Shapira, the Rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, once taught, "The time for teshuvah is Rosh Hashanah, the anniversary of the creation of the world. This is because teshuvah is also a kind of creativity. The Hebrew word teshuvah means repentance and return. However, as a creative act, teshuvah is not a simple return. We return to who we are meant to be but have not yet become. We return to growth and possibility that has lain dormant within us and not yet flourished, much as a sculpture lies hidden within a brute block of stone." That is why the process of teshuvah, as painful and even humiliating as it can be, is in fact very joyous and hopeful. You see, Rabbi Shapira taught that teshuvah requires brave and deliberate action to rediscover what's hidden within ourselves. It's a process, an act of creation that is both challenging and hopeful. So too is the creativity that is required to maintain a vibrant Jewish community. And we can use this wisdom as we look toward a new year. Our sages called Rosh Hashanah Yom Harat Olam, the day the world was created. In the book of Genesis, creation does not happen from nothing. It is born from chaos. As the first story of creation details, God orders the messiness, creating a space and place for all of it. Bereshit bara Elohim, when God began to create, the earth was unformed and void. Creation is God's attempt at ordering chaos into holiness. The Hebrew word for holiness is kadosh, or kadesh, and the root of kadesh means to lift up. There's no intrinsic holiness, but each living thing having its place makes it holy. We don't ascribe holiness to something. We recognize its special qualities by lifting it up and setting it apart from others. Recognizing the specialness of each person and accepting people in the fullness of their identity is how we develop a holy community, a place of belonging. And that is how we will continue to grow together, when we lift each other up to see the holiness that we each embody. It's that very act of lifting something up and setting it apart that makes something holy. And sometimes setting apart, when done in a way that alienates people from the group, can be painful. At the very core of this congregation is a history of openness, of welcoming those who were not welcomed in their entirety by others in the Jewish community. It's time to redefine what it means to lift up each individual and appreciate the holiness that they exemplify. Together, our congregation is facing an opportunity to begin again, to embrace our past, to build upon our rich history, and to grow with great strength into the future. the retirement of our beloved founding rabbi and the search for a new settled rabbi is an important new chapter. And while it's ultimately up to you all, the members of this community, to shape the future of this beautiful congregation, I would like to suggest that we don't have to look far for inspiration. You see, Sukkot Shalom was created by individuals and families who wanted to feel fully accepted, which is why Sukkot Shalom doesn't require a person to be Jewish to serve on the board or as temple president, and allows parents and family members to accompany their child on the bima and participate fully at their B'nai Mitzvah. Individually and communally, each year our tradition gives us permission and even demands of us to begin again. The High Holy Day liturgy draws a verse from the book of Lamentations. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, chadesh yamenu kekedem. Rabbi Robert Scheinberg explains that this verse means, renew our lives as you renewed our lives after we were exiled from the Garden of Eden. Hadesh Yamenu Kekedem is not a plea for restoration of a formerly perfect condition, but rather it's a plea for resilience, a plea for the ability to renew ourselves after future crises and dislocations, just as our lives have been renewed before. As Elie Wiesel said, God gave Adam a secret, and that secret was not how to begin, but how to begin again. So too must we begin again, building upon the past and moving forward with creativity and strength as we look to the future. I believe that we begin again by embracing who we are at the core. And at our core, we are a community that has welcomed interfaith couples, families, and those who are marginalized in other Jewish communal spaces. Even more so today, people want to be accepted in their entirety, and that is just what we need to do. People always ask me, what percentage of your congregation is made up of interfaith families? And I always say, I don't know, because that's the truth. It's not a question that we ask on a membership form, and it's not a statistic that we record. In fact, Rabbi Gordon shared that 25 years ago, they specifically didn't ask, because all of the other congregations in the area not only asked, but barred individuals who didn't identify as Jewish from serving on the board, performing certain rituals and practices. The response 25 years ago was to say, we welcome you no matter what. No matter what your religious background, you are welcome here. Rabbi Gordon and the staff and clergy of this congregation throughout the years built this community one relationship at a time. And times are changing, and the way that we want to be seen and known has changed too. There has been a reckoning over the course of my lifetime where we've discovered that being open to knowing and accepting people in the fullness of their identity is so important to that sense of understanding and belonging that we feel. Questions that may have been seen as taboo or exclusionary then are fair game in a new way now, helpful in starting conversations, forming deeper connections, and instilling a sense of belonging to all in our community. In his recent book, Belonging, social psychologist Jeffrey Cohen explains that belonging is a key factor in success in all facets of life: school, work, home, etc. Cohen defines belonging as the feeling that we're part of a larger group that values, respects, and cares for us, and to which we feel we have something to contribute. The word belong literally means to go with, and our species has evolved to journey through life with each other. He points out that feeling unwelcome at school or at work, even in short encounters, is experienced in the same way that physical pain is experienced in our brain. Belonging is an essential part of feeling safe and living a productive and successful life. Unfortunately, as Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg once said, we are currently experiencing a crisis of belonging. People are more disconnected than ever. And while it seems like a big task to undo a crisis, belonging uncertainty, as Cohen and his co-researcher call it, is that feeling that bubbles up when we're not quite sure we fit in. Cohen suggests that when we get the right support at the right time, it can be transformative in quelling the sense of uncertainty. Belonging is one of the essential feelings that we as human beings need. We need connection, we need to feel like we belong to a group, and we need to feel certain of our place in the world. Sukkot Shalom has been a place of belonging for many of you throughout the years, and I pray that we continue on that path with a new openness and willingness to ask questions, to embrace all facets of our identities within this community, and strive for all stakeholders to truly feel like they belong, because they, you, we do belong here. As we are more disconnected as a society than ever before, to know that we have the ability to offer that sense of belonging to those seeking a Jewish community is an amazing opportunity. I'm not suggesting that this is a new idea, but I see this as our way forward, to double down on our deep roots of openness, to start new conversations around identity, to truly see each other, and to forge a deep sense of belonging. As Rabbi Alan Liu teaches, we are able to find the courage to do this teshuvah, our soul work this season, precisely because we are gathered ba'agadut achat, in one single spiritual unit. Precisely because we now realize that the enterprise doesn't depend on our own single, puny, thin, pale stratagems, but on our belonging to something much larger and deeper and thicker than that. We as a community are the sum of all our parts. And it is my hope that when we show up here in the fullness of who we are, we fill this congregation with the beauty and wholeness that is our community. And we are all better for it. Shana Tova, may the new year bring a deepened sense of belonging to us all. Kain Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will.